Hi guys, my name is Alex. I am a sex coach and welcome back to my channel, another reaction video. So I've done what is sex like for straight men, but now what is sex like for women? Who knows? I am a guy. I'm a male sex coach. I have no idea. So hopefully in this video, these women will enlighten me on what sex is like for women, and we can all be enlightened together as men. Unless you're a woman watching, then you can just agree with these women. I don't know what the point is. I'm gonna elaborate on what these women say, some things that I have learned, because you know, I'm the sex expert, and that's why you guys come to my channel for my expert analysis, right? That's why I got the glasses on, because it makes me look smarter than I am, and more qualified to react to these videos. Alright, so basically it's going to be a bunch of women answering different questions that men have submitted, questions about sex, what sex is like for women. So let's get into it.
Did your first time hurt? I do remember it being a pleasant experience, but it was painful. And I was sore for like days after.
No, it didn't hurt at all, actually. He was really careful about it, and he made sure to ask me if it did hurt or not.
Yeah. I wasn't used to having anything in my vagina. Like, I didn't even use tampons at the time.
I didn't have bleeding, anything like that. It was like very great. We did it. It was done. We got burritos after. It was very enjoyable. I wish there was some sort of education on like more the emotional side, because after like my first, it took me so long to even like kiss anyone again, just because it felt very odd to me, because this was like something that had been reserved for one person for a very long time. And like I was trying to navigate like dating and relationships, and I felt like I couldn't have a normal relationship because any man coming on to me, even if that's what the setting was, even if it's something that I would have wanted to do, it just felt wrong to me.
Okay, so does it hurt? Yeah, I've heard that, yeah, it can hurt. I think the instances where it doesn't hurt, it's usually because they are more aroused by it. They are less kind of fearful, timid, tense. What happens? You go into a sexual experience as a woman, you have no idea what to expect because it's new for you, and you're anxious and you're stressed out. Am I going to perform well? Is my partner going to like doing the sex with me? And so they're not that aroused, right? Because they have the insecurity swimming around their head, pulling them down, making it so they can't really enjoy themselves during that experience. So what happens when you're afraid? What happens when you're stressed? You tense up, and that's going to make the experience a little bit more painful. It's one of the reasons why we need to spend more time in foreplay in the arousal building phase of the sex as men, when we are trying to turn women on, when we are trying to have sex with women, because the vagina actually expands the more aroused women get, and it gets ready for that penetration. And so if they're not ready for the penetration, it's going to be painful. The last woman in there made a really good point about emotional connection that is built through sex. Every sexual experience is going to have that emotional connection. There is a cascade of hormones and other things that are happening when you have sex with another person that is uniting yourself to that person, and it's not something that should be overlooked. And when we try to have casual hookups and casual sex, and we try to divorce the sex from that connection part, from that emotional part, that is where we can kind of mess ourselves up mentally. And so I don't ever recommend doing the casual sex thing. I think you should pick a partner and be monotonous with that partner. That's going to lead to better sex because you can kind of grow and expand together sexually. And you're not going to be kind of trying to ignore that emotional part and causing more kind of emotional distress than you should be. Next question.
What does it feel like when a man penetrates you? Can you explain it in a way where men can understand?
So I get the intrigue and you want to know, but honestly, I don't think you could ever know because you don't have the same parts down there. You can't ever put yourself in someone else's shoes, no matter how they describe it to you. You're never going to know, and a woman is never going to know how it feels for you, and we just have to go about our lives without that information because you can't ever have it. You don't have the frame of reference for it.
Oh, that's so weird.
What is it? I'm gonna try my best. For a man, when you really have the urge to go to the bathroom, that feeling, that like relief, except for it's the reverse.
Okay.
You don't like feel it in one spot. It kind of like, you feel it.
You know when you have to like, you put like a lid on something. It's like oddly satisfying when you put a lid on a jar of pickles. And so did I really just describe it as that?
Dude, I don't think I've ever put a jar on anything that has ever been that satisfying. I hope sex for women isn't that bad. So, I mean, there's not really anything to gain from this question. We will never be able to experience it. We will never, well, I guess I shouldn't say never. Elon Musk may make some kind of connection to your brain that lets you know how it feels to have a vagina. But until then, we're just gonna have to be content with not ever knowing how it feels. Next question.
Do you ever worry your vagina doesn't look normal?
Yes.
I felt like I didn't have a normal vagina.
Not anymore. I definitely did at one point, because then I would hear like this whole rhetoric about like roast beef or whatever, and I was like, my vagina kind of does look like roast beef, and I don't know why that's a problem.
Yes, everyone's going to be insecure about their bodies, what they look like, and that is one of the main things that we need to do in order to provide better sexual experiences, is try to alleviate those insecurities. Because like we said in that first thing, in that first question, the more things that are clouding their mind, the more insecurities floating around in there, the more stressed they are, the worse the sex is going to be. So if we can compliment them, tell them they are perfect the way they are, make them feel comfortable with us, that is going to lead to better sexual experiences, because their brain is going to be more able to perceive the pleasure rather than perceiving judgment or negativity or insecurities, whatever it is. All right, next question.
If you're on birth control, how does it affect your body? So it's not something I'm currently on, but when I was on it, I believed that it would clear my acne because that's something I heard for a long time, but it did the complete opposite. It made it worse. I for sure had mood swings, and I feel like that's not who I am at all.
It might take you several different tries with birth control to find one that works for your body. For me, I loved the NuvaRing. My sister tried the NuvaRing. She gained like 15 pounds and hated it.
The main thing is to make sure you're always taking it, because I have a tendency to forget, and that's when it really messes you up.
With the implant, I bled for almost a year straight. So that wasn't fun at all. If you have any like questions, just talk to a doctor about it.
Okay, so I actually disagree with using birth control for women. I don't think you should mess with your hormones or anything like that. Surgical implants are also risky, and if you're responsible and you are kind of cognizant and aware of your body's fluctuations in your cycle, then there's not that much risk in getting pregnant, and you can use a condom and it's not going to be that awful, that crazy. I just don't think you should introduce anything that's going to influence your body's natural processes, and so I don't ever recommend it. Next question.
Sex on your period, how? In all caps.
Never have I ever.
Well, I did have my period for a year straight, so that's something I had to figure out. You gotta use a towel and a condom. Honestly, it feels better because your hormones are so all over the place that it's kinda, it's not as bad as everyone thinks it is.
Personally, to me, sex on my period just seems uncomfortable because I'm already cramping up a lot. You're already really sensitive by your vagina.
Things like Diva cups and different types of period products, per se, that can go inside of you, and you can have mess-free, that's how they advertise it, mess-free period sex.
So it's going to be messy regardless. Can you have sex on your period? Yes. It doesn't really matter if you are okay with the mess, because there will be a mess, then go for it. And yeah, you might like it. If you don't care about getting dirty and getting blood everywhere, like it looks like a murder scene, then go for it. There's nothing stopping you except maybe some kind of repulsion toward it. If your partner doesn't like it or doesn't want it, then they don't have to have it, I guess. That's what I'm saying. It's going to be messy. My recommendation would be to put some towels down. Otherwise, you will ruin your sheets.
Is it normal to masturbate? I know some people who would say, no, it's not, and I disagree wholeheartedly. I feel like people who are like, I don't masturbate, I don't watch, I don't do anything, that builds up. And I feel like masturbation is a way to kind of let it out.
I do it probably every day.
Is it normal to masturbate? Yes, obviously. When we are learning about ourselves, learning about our sexuality, of course we are going to masturbate. The issue is when you pair masturbation with pornography, that can lead to a whole mess of problems, not only sexually, but in your life, and that goes for women too. Women have porn-induced sexual dysfunction just as much as men. So, yeah. That's scary, right? So I also think there's a point in your life where you don't need masturbation anymore. Once you know what you like and you figure that out, which is probably 99.9% of all men. For women, maybe it's a little bit less, and maybe you could learn something else from masturbating, but there will be a point where you don't need it anymore, and it's not really useful anymore. And no, if you go without sexual release for longer than a week, you are not going to explode or die or anything crazy like that. You might find that you become a better person, so yeah, try it. You don't need masturbation. But is it normal? Yes, of course it's normal. Yeah, of course. All right, moving on.
Have you ever questioned your sexuality? Yes. I went through like a whole questioning phase, like, would I ever really be attracted to another woman? I think that's very normal for people to go through. Even just like coming to terms with the fact that you're straight.
I had one very strong crush on a girl, but I think it was more of an infatuation. Just the way she looked, I wanted to look like her more so than be with her.
I'm going to flat out disagree with what the first girl said. I don't think it's that normal to question your sexuality. I think the reason we question our sexuality these days is because we are bombarded by sexuality and different modes of sexuality with the LGBT and all those different letters that it's basically the whole alphabet at this point. And as children, we are brought up with the transgender stuff and the sexuality stuff and gay or straight or lesbian, and it's just thrown at us so much. I think 50 years ago, before that stuff was thrown at you, I think the people that were naturally gay were probably like, yeah, they were probably a little bit confused, probably a lot confused. And I know that's a really hard thing to go through. I know a lot of gay people that have gone through that. I know it's tough. I don't necessarily think it's something that everyone just naturally goes through where they question their sexuality. I think they're questioning it because it's being bombarded on them by society. And I know that can be an extremely hard and contentious thing to go through. Knowing that you are gay or knowing that you are a lesbian or anything on the spectrum, that can be extremely tough because you're trying to wrap your mind around the fact that you don't necessarily fit in with the norm, with the common thing that happens. And I have a lot of empathy for people like that. I know it's extremely hard to deal with. It's extremely tough. Your sexuality is an extremely important thing. What I'm saying is that questioning it though and not knowing if you are and actually going through that thought experiment of am I lesbian, am I gay, I don't think that's necessarily normal. I think the only reason it's coming through your mind for so many people is because of that bombardment by society and media and just showing you flat out gay pride, the LGBTQ and all that kind of stuff that they push on people younger and younger, and it's just everywhere now. When you look at movies, TV, all that stuff, it is everywhere. And so of course it's going to cross your mind. Am I one of these things? Had you never heard of those things, had you never heard of those movements, then you probably wouldn't be thinking about it. You'd probably just be thinking, yeah, I like sex. I don't need to think about it any further than that. Anyway, that's going to do it for me in this video. Before I get canceled, before I start ranting too much about this stuff, I'm going to back off and let this video be what it is. Anyway, this video is not finished, so I'm going to come back for a part 2. So stay tuned for that in the future. Also stay tuned for future videos. If you like my content, you like this video, come back for more. Definitely subscribe. I put out new videos every weekday, and I'd love if you would, you know, watch them and join my channel. Until next time, thank you so much for watching this one, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye, guys.